Welcome back. This is part two of Black Bear's Sign, and I really want to start here with bites and scratches. And I just want a quick shout out to Dave Moskowitz. He's the gentleman in the right there. Dave is an author. He's written books about wolves and field guides, and a fantastic guy, very neat individual. He was the instructor of this course in Idaho when I took it, and he is standing in front of a post that has been bit and scratched by black bears. And I wanted to start with that picture because it shows you that bites and scratches sometimes are low on a tree. Sometimes they're a bit higher, but this one really gives you that idea. The bears only had something chest high and they still bit and scratched it. The picture on the left here, yeah, your other right, is some scratch marks on my father's property. If you've done this correctly, you have watched this PowerPoint before our field trip to my dad's property. So that's a red pine down in Steuben County right here in good old New York State. Okay, so just like I showed you, tracks can have a variety of looks to them. So can scratch marks. This is one of the most deepest, obscene looking bear scratches that I've ever found here. And I wonder if this bear was able to scratch so deeply because maybe the tree was rotten inside to begin with, and you can see all of the sap coming to try to heal a little bit of like scar tissue there forming around the scratch marks there. And then the little inset picture here on the right, you can see just little claw marks here. I do want to point out that I could only find 4 scratch marks here. I told you that bears have 5 toes per foot, but I can only find 4 nail prints. That's common. Just like bears sometimes don't show their heel when they walk, sometimes they only show 3 or 4 claws when they're scratching or climbing. The problem with that is you find a scratch mark on a tree that's got 4, and you know that bears have 5, all of a sudden, you've just discovered mountain lions in New York State. So please be careful of that. Thanks. Here's a cool scratch mark. And again, this is just a foursome here. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. And look at how the tree is just healing it over. So one of the problems with scratching and biting in trees is that the tree continues to grow and is going to heal over. And I can't bring you to this anymore. This scratch mark is about 8 years old on my dad's property, and I cannot find it because the tree has healed itself right over. I do want to point out that sometimes bears will leave claw marks because they climbed a tree, not because they were marking it. So those long scratch marks that you saw right there where the bear swatted at the tree, those were made by a bear purposely making a mark. These marks on this, what kind of tree is this? Beech tree. Yep, beech, that smooth gray elephant skin looking bark. Beech trees get climbed a lot because beech nuts are a bear's favorite food. So you can see all of the scratch marks in here. Here's a great one. Look at this arc of 5. You can just imagine the bear's foot on there. Here's another arc of 5 where the bear's foot is sideways. And then I want to show you these ones. Do you see how these are more elongated here? So these are from a bear climbing up, and then when they climb down, they kind of put the brakes on and they make deeper, longer gouges in the tree there. So I would look at this tree and say none of these marks were made because the bear was trying to mark the tree. They were all incidental, happened as the bear was climbing the tree, probably for food. So if we look at these, you can see we have a different species of tree. This is some sort of poplar tree, maybe an eastern cottonwood here. And you can see, again, claw marks all the way up this tree. And then claw marks here. So here's just puncture wounds. And then here's more slicing, swiping claw marks. I did mention to you bears will climb trees for food. I would now like to also mention to you that bears sometimes climb trees to avoid danger. And that's one of the reasons why black bears are not as dangerous as grizzly bears, because not only will they themselves climb a tree, but as you'll see later, they'll send their cubs up a tree as well. This is a bear with a collar on and an ear tag. I think the ear tag is very easy to see in this picture. And this was a bear that was darted already by the DEC, and then we had to rush in underneath it with a big cargo net, so as the bear got sleepy and fell out of the tree, we would catch it in the net like good firemen. So that's a pretty cool picture. I've got some good memories of that bear. So they will also climb trees to mark them. So I don't know if the bear is already up in the tree finding food or avoiding danger and then marks the tree, or purposely climbs the tree just to mark it. So if you can see the angle that I'm looking at here, look at how I took this picture. I got the camera raised way up and I'm taking these pictures of these long claw marks. Now why do I think this is bear marking? Well, they're sideways swipes like this, and that really indicates bear marking behavior. But you could argue, well, maybe the bear was climbing and just couldn't get his claws were slipping. Let me show you one where we can't make that argument. This was in February of 2012. That's what 212 means. So sorry. February of 2012. We went to a bear den, and this is Art Kirsch there in the Carhartts. He is retired now, a bear biologist. And then this was a DEC employee, a former FLCC student, and another DEC employee who's also a former FLCC student. And I'm walking behind them, and I notice Art spotting this. So Art's a pretty tall guy, but still, this is a bear standing on its hind legs making scratches right here. Do you see that? And then as I take a picture, I thought, oh, that'll be good for my slideshow. Here it is, nice up and close so you can actually see it. So scratch marks tend to be up and down like this. And even though I'm having a hard time on this ash tree seeing individual claw marks, I can make out a few. Here's one right here. Here's another one down here. Art points straight up the tree and he says, oh, look at those. And that's what he was looking at. So not only did this bear mark the tree down here near the base, but it also did up in the tree as well. Why do I make a big deal of this? Well, you will actually hear people and even read in some books that bears will stand on their hind legs and bite a tree or scratch it to let other bears know how big they are. And it turns out that is just a load of hooey, like not true at all. And I'll show you, here's one way to disprove that, is since bears can climb trees, this bear looks like he's about 40 feet tall. So he's the most badass bear that's out there. And then I'll show you one more piece of evidence in just a moment. You have a textbook that you're supposed to read for this class, and they refer to these kind of trees in there. DeBrun actually talks about them. I learned them called babysit trees. I don't think he calls them that exactly. But in his work, he found that when the bears that he was following had small cubs, they would spend a good amount of time near big rough bark trees like this old white pine. And the reason for them being rough barked is so it would be easier for the cubs to climb them. And being big also gives them a lot of branches and places to hide when they're up there. And the idea is that the tree acts like a babysitter. So they're called babysit trees by some authors. So when a black bear wants to keep its cubs safe, it'll send them up a tree. Now, this particular tree we were led to here in Massachusetts by our guides, and she and Nick and Val, both of them, pointed out the cub marks on the cub claw marks, on this tree, and I just couldn't get them from a distance. So I tried taking a picture like this, and then I tried taking the same exact picture with a flash. And I think the flash helps light them up a little bit more. You can see a mark there. You can see some bark missing up here, and maybe some more on this side as well. The question is, How do I know that it was done by a bear? Well, when you look in nice and super close like I am here, you can see here's a big chunk of bark that's missing, which would have caught my eye. And when I come in close to look, I can see the smaller claw marks there. So babysit tree. Here's what the tree looks like, the rest of the tree, and you can see how great this would be. A nice big tree, easy to climb, and then the cubs have all kinds of little branches that they can park their butts on and stay safe. I have witnessed black bears sending their cubs up a babysit tree twice in my life. Both times were in Yellowstone, and both times I had my camera. So here is a mother bear with a couple cubs, and she is near a babysit tree. And I think she's foraging, looking for food here on purpose close to this tree because this is a place she could send her cubs if she needed to. A coyote comes out into the meadow and tries to stalk these cubs. Spoiler alert, the coyote doesn't get any of them, but mom literally chases her cubs up that tree while she's staring at the coyote. And she's vocalizing to her cubs, and they knew what to do. Those cubs knew that they were supposed to run and get up that tree. Here's another example. Same national park, gazillion miles away from the last sighting. But there is mom, and again, look at how she's not looking at her cubs. In this case, another black bear had come onto the scene, and it was all by itself, so it could have been a male, so a little bit unpredictable. So she made a huffing noise, and both of the cubs ran and bolted up that tree. She watches the lone bear move away, and look at her. Just look at her head craned up. She's literally looking up at her cubs up there, making sure that they're safe. She makes a noise, and they both come back down the tree again. I also want to point out that these cubs are both brown in color. Now, they may get darker as they get older, but it is certainly possible to find a brown black bear, right? Right? Everybody good with that? Cool. Last one. So I told you twice I've seen a mother shoo her cubs up. I was in Yosemite National Park 2018, I believe, and that's in California, and watching this bear eating from an apple tree. And she's collared and ear tagged, and I'm standing on the trail. I don't leave the trail, and I'm taking pictures, and she starts walking closer to us. I don't feel threatened. I don't think she's too close. There's no ranger to yell at me. I don't mean to sound cavalier about this, but I really, black bears are really not super dangerous. And as she gets closer to us, look at what she does. She looks up. And in the dang tree that's about 25 feet away from me, there's a cub. The whole time. I had no idea that the cub was up there. When people tell you not to get between a mother and their young, that's great advice. But when it comes to black bears, there's not any evidence that black bears will aggressively, fatally attack you if you get between them and their cubs. Don't do it on purpose, but I don't walk in the woods in fear in the spring. Okay, so that was a run through a lot of the claw marks here. Let's talk about bites. And two of my favorite pictures. So the one on the right I took back in 2010 in Yellowstone National Park. That was the first time I ever watched a black bear bite a tree, and the darn bear, of course, stood up and bit the far side of the tree. Doesn't he look like he's trying to hide from the hunters in that picture? Like, if I wasn't so fat, I'd be able to hide behind that tree. It's all COVID weight. Don't worry about it. And on the left side here, this was in a National Wildlife Refuge, and one of the roads was called Bear Road, and so that's supposed to be a road sign there, but it sure does look like it was an invitation to that bear to bite the heck out of that post there. This is a red pine that was bit by a black bear. This is in Massachusetts, and I want to show you what I'm looking at. So get my red pen out. If you look here, this is where all the action happened. You can see the torn wood underneath the bark here. And what you've got are two of the big canines from the black bear. One comes in this direction and the other comes in this direction. And when they almost meet, the bear pulls away. And when it pulls away, a big chunk of wood is lost here. And look at it, brought a big hunk of bark all the way up to here out. So often these bite marks are very easy to see. And there's the teeth right there. This was at a den visit a bunch of years ago. You can see the technician is wearing gloves. This is one of my alum. And here is an eye patch, just used because when they're chemically immobilized, you'll learn all about this. They can't blink their eyes, so that keeps dirt and light out of their eyes. And those are the teeth right there, ladies and gentlemen. Those are the big canines that are doing all the biting there. So in 2019, when my wife and I went to North Carolina, we were able to watch black bears actually bite and scratch and rub on trees numerous times. And this was one of my favorites here. This was a huge male bear, and you can see on the left side that he's actually biting the tree, and on the right side here he's rubbing on it. And the thought is that the biting maybe helps loosen up some scent, maybe produce some sap, and help the scent that the bear leaves behind stay there longer. So nobody's 100% sure, but that's part of it there. And you can see this post here. This is all the way back to the post I showed you earlier that Dave was standing next to in Idaho. When a bear rubs on the tree, often, or a post in this case, often it'll leave hairs behind. And if you look how light in color these hairs are, that just tells you they've been here for a long time, probably longer than 6 months, because the sun has just bleached the color right out of them. And then I promised you I would show you one more piece of evidence that bears biting trees has nothing to do with telling how big they are. And that can be shown in this bear bite right here. This is a bear bite. What is this, a 6-inch bear with gigantic normal-sized teeth? No, this is a bear standing on all fours that just takes a nip at this. Bear biting has nothing to do with the size of the bear. Okay? And I'll show you one last kind of cool one here. This is the first bear bite that I ever found on my dad's property down in Steuben County, down in Wayland. And if you see this is a hop hornbeam tree. And right up here there's some scratch marks. And here's the bite action. And if we zoom in on that, you can see not only was this the first bear bite that I found on his property, but one of the few bear bites that I've ever found that has been all 4 canines. So normally it's just the right side or the left side they use to bite. This bear reached down while he was on all fours, right, because it was so low, and just grabbed that tree with his entire mouth and dragged on it. So you can see 2 uppers and 2 lowers here. Just a very unusual, not like I discovered something brand new, but not a typical bear bite. A typical bear bite looks like this, and I'm referring to this piece right here. It sort of looks like the telephone pole got grazed by a .22 bullet. It'll have fibers going in this direction, fibers going in this direction, and they don't quite meet in the middle, and the bear pulls away. The advantage of having a bear biting a utility pole is that it just will not grow back. So these don't heal. The disadvantage is it's hard to tell how old they are, and of course the utility company can come in anytime they want and replace the poles, so sometimes you got to be careful. One last piece that I'll tell you, this is from a lineman spike, you know, the climbing spikes that they have. So you got to be careful when we start looking at utility poles. They've got all kinds of marks in them that have nothing to do with the bear. Okay. This was a cool series of bear biting that my wife and I found in the Delaware Water Gap down in Pennsylvania. And if you look at this, you can see that there's multiple bear bites here. And I want to show you this picture because I'd like to compare it to that one that I showed you earlier that I called scratch marks. So on this tree, you can see up and down. And on the utility pole, you can see side to side. Are you watching Karate Kid on Netflix like every good American? So this really indicates biting. This really indicates scratching. Cool. Once again, they use their canine teeth. They do not use their They're incisors. I said I took all the pictures. Obviously, I didn't take that one. Sorry. Okay. As the bite ages, the tree is just going to heal it over here. And if you have a look, you see that I'm reaching up here to get this. Some of them can be pretty high. So I want your search image to be like from 7 feet high, maybe down to about 4 feet. And that's, boy, I'm yawning at my own lecture. That's about where you're going to find most of the bear biting. I probably had something more important to say there, and I just can't remember it. Okay, last little tidbit on bear bites. You ready? Can you see, regardless of what this all looks like, can you see where this all started? Does that not look like a bullet zing right there? So that's where the canine started the entry. There must be another one on this side. And boy, did that bear get a satisfying pull out of that, and bark and tree all came out of that. In fact, my daughter kind of mugging for the camera in the background. Look at how huge of a scar that bear left behind. I contend that not only are bears biting and then leaving their scent behind, but I really think these bear bites are a visual marker to other bears as well. This technically is bear biting, but I want to show you this. So I only found this because we had a camera at a bear den, and you can see the cub here on the right of the picture mouthing this branch here. So almost all of these sticks in the foreground all were just teething sticks for the cubs. That was pretty cool. That was neat to find, and probably would never find one of those on my own. Had to have some cheating there. And then Paul Rezendes, he's an author out of Massachusetts. He wrote a pretty cool tracking book. He coined the term whammy tree. When a bear bites a tree that's so small, like a young tree, a sapling, if you will, that it snaps the tree off and breaks a bunch of branches, that's called a whammy tree. And in his book, in his field guide, he writes, it looks like somebody threw a grenade into the tree and broke all the branches. So whammy tree, not very technical of a term there. Here's 2 whammy trees. The one on the right is from Massachusetts, and you can see the bear snapped the top off. It snapped all the branches, and then it's covered in the bear's hair. The bear rubbed it all. And then here's one that we found in North Carolina where the bear snapped the tree right in half here, a red pine that was growing and has just been topped there. Cool. Hey, let's take one last break here, okay? Let's split this into 3 parts. So I'll end the video here, and we will start with scat for part 3, our final bear sign chunk.